Good morning, LinkedIn professionals. My name is Kaylin. I am the founder of Ellie Social Media Marketing Agency. And today I'm bringing you guys our second webinar, which is No Risk, No Reward, How to Leverage Controversial Content the Right Way. So today, I'm really happy that you're joining me. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking, obviously, about some riskier content, but ideally that kind of content that resonates with small and medium-sized businesses. So how can we take examples from real world multi-million dollar campaigns and use the same kind of idea to skyrocket our social media content through our businesses? And that's what I'm going to get into today. I have 6 years of marketing experience. I started off as a digital nomad in Thailand, and I have since been doing a freelance career, and I established my agency in 2021, Ellie Social. And ever since then, we've been running many different social media campaigns for over 50 different businesses and loving it. So today I'm going to share a little bit of my humble experience, some feedback on some multi-million dollar campaigns, like I said, but also looking at some examples of content that's controversial in terms of comparison content, clickbait headlines, smaller scale strategies that you can use to get the same impact. Now, we're new with these webinars. This is only the second one that we're doing through Ellie Social, but in the new year in 2025, we'll be bringing you a monthly webinar. So definitely head on over to our page. Make sure you're following Ellie Social. Feel free to follow my personal account, Kaylin Brown, on my LinkedIn. And then you can stay updated on what's to come. We have 3 other webinars already scheduled from December to February. And so Q1 is all up. If any of those topics are interesting for you, definitely RSVP and join me on those so that you get the reminder to come in, join me, and learn a little bit more about social media for business. So with that being said, please like, subscribe, and share this video. I'm going to go ahead and present to you the webinar slides right now. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. It's going to be loading any minute now. We are talking about controversial campaigns. Now, there is a big difference between controversial campaigns that are big flops and those that are done right. And that's what I really wanted to talk to you guys about today. This is going to be a Canva PDF. If you want the slides after, just let me know, send me a direct message, or if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the video or send me a message afterwards. So yeah, like I was saying, there's a big difference between those that are done as a flop and those done right. Now, if we take a look at some examples of flops, we can remember the Pepsi commercial with Kendall Jenner, Live for Now, that ended up in a big controversy and some apologies. I think it was just because it was making light of a more serious situation. People speaking up for important causes. And I think overall this campaign just left people feeling like, what was the point? Did it really add to the exposure of these special causes, or was it just making light of something that should have been more serious? That was what happened here, putting a celebrity into a situation where she just didn't necessarily belong. And then we also had the Nike's Colin Kaepernick campaign in 2018, and that was Nike standing behind this NFL football player who took a knee and was standing up for Black rights. And so they were able to give him a brand ambassadorship after, and that was a really smart move on Nike's behalf. I think everyone can believe in Black rights and want to support the cause. All lives matter, Black Lives Matter, sorry. And then we had our UK subway system here, which is, are you Beachbody ready? Now this, I just wanted to give you a different example of something related to a different subject, and this is obviously body positivity. We thought we were more in a modern society where you could post more different kinds of bodies and have a little bit more body positivity and acceptance of different various body types. And this was plastered all over a subway station. And there was just a lot of backlash on the unrealistic body standards of this. And so it really didn't go over well. Now, what is the commonality between all of these campaigns? Well, it's that there was a lot of money put behind them. Now, with smaller businesses, we don't have big budgets like that, but that doesn't mean that we have to stay away from controversial content altogether. There are ways to do it. And one of the important things to consider is the importance of having an opinion here. Now, it doesn't always land well with everybody. You're not necessarily, as a business, going to be speaking to everybody. And that's the point, is that you want to be reaching out to an audience that is aligned with your brand. Of course, you don't want to really polarize yourself with really intense kind of sidebar topics, but all of the main ones that are kind of controversial that just make sense, obviously it makes sense to have a stance on them. And when you share that with your audience, you can better align your audience with your brand online, but also it gives yourself a sense of purpose too, in that you feel like you're expressing your values and you're witnessing your passion make an impact. So that's going to give you a lot of self positivity and purpose in your daily work. But it's also going to keep your audience in a connection with you and spark conversation and shared perspectives. So that's going to be a good way for not only you to share your belief system, but for your audience to also come together and share theirs with you as well. Now, ideally, your belief systems are things that align with your brand. If your belief systems and your brand are very different from each other, then you're going to have a little bit of a tough time with this. But if you are aligned with your business and your values and what you want to convey to your audience, it will be easy to share those perspectives and ideally have people kind of agree and spark a conversation on your page. With that, you can get an increased customer lifetime value because they feel loyal to your brand and aligned with your customers, right? You can also generate a higher engagement rate in your business because those shared opinions and values are sparking emotional responses and prompting the audiences to react. So you're ideally going to be making a really big impact here. And lastly, if you want to think deeper on a way in terms of having controversial causes for a cause, controversial posts for a cause, then you can think of what impact is going to make in the long term and what impact does it actually make in real world, right? If you're tackling things that you strongly believe in and you think other people should believe in it, some of your content might actually convert their opinion and get them on the same page as you. And if you're able to do that, then you're really sparking a huge change in the world. And that's why these brands spend multiple millions of dollars on there. So some of the hurdles that you may face when you're deciding whether or not to share this controversial content might be that you have a low stress threshold, which is normal. And if you don't have the bandwidth to be able to kind of handle some of the fears and anxieties surrounding putting these campaigns together, then maybe it's not worth it for you, right? So that could be a hurdle stopping you from going forward with the controversial content. Now, if you're able to be equipped with the tools to properly put that content together for yourself, then it won't be as stressful. So that's the idea here with the webinar, is to equip you with more tools to ensure that you're not stressed out when you're putting these campaigns together. Now, there may be other people on your team or above you who are low risk and don't want you to put together these campaigns. Say you're the social media manager for this health clinic or this law firm, and your superiors maybe have seen the content and they're saying, no, don't post that. I don't want to start anything online. Of course, you have to respect your superiors if they're not okay with you doing that, but there is also a way to make a case for your content. As social media managers, we also have to convey the reality of strategy and what we need to do and trust our instincts and ensure that we're achieving the goals set forth by our leadership boards. And so it's important to, if you really believe in what you're doing, to advocate for yourself and advocate for the content that you'd like to put out. Maybe there's different ways that you can go about negotiating or compromising. Maybe changing the wording or changing the caption or the way that you're going about it may be the solution here. Another hurdle might be the budget and resources that you have. Maybe you just have a social media manager that's also your receptionist at your clinic, and we don't have the time to go through and build a whole strategy around controversial content. You don't have the money to put behind the exposure of these posts. You don't want to do paid advertising or anything like that. And so it's organic content. Now, that could still be helpful. You could still generate a good impact by not putting paid resources behind it. So if it's that, then you can still do it. If it's more about time, then you might want to consider working with us at Ellie Social Media Marketing Agency to put together some campaigns that are going to make a real impact in your business. We can work together on budget and see if we're aligned in terms of the cost of that. Now, another hurdle might just be that it's a low priority. Maybe you have a lot of other content that you want to get on your page first. Maybe you just want to cover your bases. If that's the case, you might want to head on over to our website. We have a PDF download, which is 20 posts to launch. And that's going to get you right on track with where you need to be. You'll have your 20 posts up on your page, and then you can start experimenting with content types and strategies and controversial content, because you know, okay, I have a baseline. I'm not starting my brand with some controversial content that you don't know is going to go which way or the other. And then the last hurdle that I could think of was compliance and legal fears. And we're going to talk about that later on in the stream. So definitely stay tuned on this session. But it's a definitely understandable fear to have. But the important thing is that we'll do the research to ensure, and talk about this later, to ensure that you have some checklist or some idea of what is and isn't allowed online, depending on your industry and the different compliance issues and regulations that are related to your business. And like I said, we'll get into that after. So for this webinar, I know we're almost 10 minutes in, but I really want you to feel equipped with the tools and the awareness surrounding how to post the right way and ensuring success every time. So we're going to have a little bit of a filtering process that we'll talk about later. Number 2, I want you to walk away with exciting content ideas that you can execute on your company feeds fearlessly. So if you feel like you're prepared and like you have everything behind you to actually go out and implement these campaigns successfully, you're going to feel confident, and that's my main priority here. And that's number 3. So navigating regulations on specific and rigid health parameters can be scary, and that's what I want you to feel comfortable with, is to feel confident with this content and have lots of ideas walking away from this session on which kinds of controversial content is appropriate for your business. So what's considered controversial? Well, clickbait headlines are definitely something that is considered controversial. If you think about situations in marketing that you've had a really strong emotional response to, that post was probably controversial. So if you have a clickbait headline and you're like, what? And you go and you click on that, it's probably because it was somewhat controversial. We also recently saw in the States the election with Trump and Harris, and we saw a lot of brands taking sides and advocating for different parties and different causes. A lot of controversial content regarding the politics surrounding the election that just passed. And I'm sure you can probably think of some but some situations that you saw during that time of some businesses who either did or did not align with your values and your beliefs during that political time. And either you may have seen yourself having an emotional response, maybe unfollowing or commenting or liking or sharing to your story. All of those things are really strong indicators that that was a controversial or sparked a conversation at the minimum. And you could see how that might have impacted those brands and those companies. There were some instances that I saw in which it leads me to want to say that maybe controversial content in terms of politics is best kept with businesses and enterprises that have a lot of money behind their campaigns. So usually those kinds of businesses who have big budgets also have the big budget to fix any mistakes that they might make. Now, if you're a small business and you go on Instagram or TikTok and that's your money-making platform and you go and you say that you side with party A or party B, you might be putting your business at a huge risk there, and you could not necessarily have the right understanding of who your audience is. You could think that all of your audience is Kamala Harris, and then post something about it, and then realize after that actually half your audience just unfollowed you, and you really made a mistake in assuming who's following what your demographic is. And so in general, I usually suggest not talking about politics. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean don't talk about social issues. Social issues are different because you're not saying this is right, this is wrong. You're potentially starting a conversation surrounding the idea, getting your opinion out there, but also maybe starting the conversation, and so it's not as white or black, and then you don't necessarily alienate others as much. Another version of controversial content is intimate storytelling. So the drama, right? Like people want the tea and they want to hear all these stories. And in a lot of cases, I've seen this play out really well on social media where people do multi-part series and they do a long story, and they have, at the end of the story, they say, follow me, or go to my profile for part 2. And then it could be even a 10-part series, and people will end up following along and following your page because they want to see what happens next, and it's a really juicy story. And so that could be controversial if it contains trigger warnings, if it's somewhat traumatic, if it's something that happened that's pretty extreme. Maybe somebody... I'm not sure. Maybe someone did something to your business and you wanted to tell a story about it. That's kind of controversial because you're kind of giving up your vulnerability a little bit. And some people might have opinions on you or the drama that you're telling. And this can go either way. Again, you want to be careful and have some type of filtering system that we'll talk about later in order to tackle that. But that is a form of controversial content. Celebrity-backed endorsements, similar to politics. When you insert a celebrity into your campaign, you're basically alienating anyone who doesn't like that celebrity. Or if you're choosing a celebrity who has done something in the past that isn't aligned with your values, that could spark controversy. And there's obviously positive controversy as well. It's not all negative. It's not always a bad thing to spark conversation. It could be a good thing because you're enabling a cause that doesn't have as much exposure. You're putting a celebrity behind it, and now all of a sudden you get a lot more opportunity for fundraising and donations and causes and people learning more about what you're speaking about. So celebrities can be really helpful with that. The same goes for influencers, that type of thing. Certain designer branding choices can also be controversial depending on how extreme you go with them. If it's really ugly and only appeals to certain audiences, that could be controversial. If it's like really, really bright, if your brand includes swear words, like for instance, Gary Vee, some of his branding choices are to call people out and use swear words in his content. And is that necessarily bad? Absolutely not. It works for him. He has multi-million followers and lots of exposure, and people love him. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing to make certain choices in your business, but you want to stick with them and ensure that they're congruent and authentic to you. Brand alter egos, that's a controversial topic. We can get into that later. Negative reviews kind of goes into the storytelling. And then lastly, we have direct comparisons or claims about the competition. So I used to live stream once a week for another business, and it was a product. And so it was a lot easier to compare directly on camera the two different products. So you can either create your own video talking about your brand, or you can leverage influencers and get them to do comparisons, and then it's more authentic, it's more of a storytelling opportunity. They're able to share their opinions and authentically promote your product, potentially. Ideally, you don't necessarily want them to be bad talking your competition, but some references here and there could go a long way in convincing a potential audience to go with your product versus the competitors. And that can get controversial in terms of brand wars, or if the other company is upset with the direction that your brand is taken, or they just don't like that some of your customers have reviewed both at the same time. So that can be another way to generate some controversial content within your brand. So I'll go into some examples now. Sorry, I've just been talking. And we'll get into kind of more specifics regarding each one of those things. With clickbait headlines, obviously, the main filtering system that you want to put forth is it actually something that interests and has value? Like if you're having something, maybe your clickbait is my deepest, darkest secret. Okay, my deepest, darkest secret. Okay, what is her deepest, darkest secret? I don't know. I want to find out. And then you click through, and it's this long article about how I use Colgate instead of Sensodyne, right? And it has nothing to do with my personal life or my brand or anything like that. And you just find that it's very unworthy of your time. So that can give you the ick. It can give secondhand embarrassment, and that can be damaging to your brand. So whenever you have a clickbait headline, make sure that the content that it leads to is worthy of such interest, because if not, you're going to leave your audience feeling a little bit gypped. Obviously, they could be embarrassed by your effort to create some kind of clickbait headline that isn't interesting and just waste people's time. So be careful about that. When you're talking about getting political, it can be, like I said, polarizing. You could be gambling your audience and be making assumptions about who's following you. And also another point to make here is when you're talking about presidential candidates, and you're trying to support them, are you doing it because it's good for your business, or are you doing it because you strongly believe in something personally and you really want something to happen and your ego is telling you, I need this person to win in order for me to make my business good, and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that whatever is driving you to post about politics is actually aligned with your brand's values on your company page. Yeah, that's the main important here. And so now I want to get into a couple examples of controversial content that I've employed for my clients that are in the health industry and have a lot of regulations surrounding what they can and can't post. Obviously, you can't make claims about products. You can't directly sell your products through social media platforms a lot of the time because there's kids on there, and just certain claims that you're not allowed to make. So we'll talk more about regulation later, but I wanted to share some ways around health clinic regulation and how you can kind of spark more interest in your feeds by using celebrity endorsements. So here is Joe Rogan. So he's talking about, I have my speaker plugged in, so I'm not sure if you can hear it. Sorry, my microphone is plugged in, so I don't know that you can hear it. But basically, he was at the airport. He heard someone sleeping. They were going like that, making all these noises. Sorry. And he noticed that was sleep apnea because he has it. And when the guy woke himself up by suffocating, basically, he said, yo, you have sleep apnea. You should see a doctor. And the guy was like, oh, okay, sure. And he was like, no, really, you need to see a doctor because it's such a serious condition. And if you don't know that you're living with sleep apnea and you go to bed, you could not wake up because you just stop breathing. And so this could cause a lot of issues for you. And to have someone like Joe Rogan who feels kind of like one of the guys and feels like a friend, and to share the story, it kind of makes you think, okay, maybe my husband has sleep apnea and we need to take it a little bit more seriously. And Joe Rogan obviously has his own podcast. He has a lot of credibility in the industry. He knows a lot about health. And for those kinds of people, it might be worth listening to, right? Not everyone's gonna love Joe Rogan though at the same time. So you get to decide if that's worth it. But for this specific one, it was. I actually posted this on the LinkedIn feed on the Ellie social page. So if you actually wanted to hear it with audio, not sure if it played on the video, but you can go ahead and do so. This one was through another supplement company that I worked with, and it was basically offering a free sleep analysis for sleep tests overnight, virtually done at the house. And you can also submit your tongue photo for a free holistic analysis, health analysis, to show how well your health is and give you diagnosis based on traditional Chinese medicine. And so this is a Chinese medicine expert here talking on the left, and she's talking about Cardi B's mouth. And so everyone loves a little drama, and she's saying this tongue is conducive to this kind of reaction and symptomatic things that you might see if you're having issues with your health. And she's an expert in Chinese medicine. So that was helpful. And actually these posts both did better than all the averages of all the other reels that were on the page. So that just goes to show you that when you kind of think outside the box and take examples from other people in the industry or other videos that you've seen before, you can really skyrocket your engagement. Now, like I said with Gary Vee, he has branding strategy where he uses swear words, and he uses like a lot of call outs in his social media. Is really honest and brutal. So that's a branding decision. Now, this was a logistics company that I worked with that was located in Toronto, and actually got discovered and acquired through our Instagram page that we were managing for them. So that was a really huge success to know that this business owner was able to translate our work on social media and get exposure, get in front of some investors, and actually sell his business through being discovered on social media. And for them, their brand strategy was that they wanted to be kind of cool, sexy, this office modern hip-hop type vibe, hustlers. They wanted to show that they're like a good, fun team who works hard. They're kind of like entrepreneurial salespeople in their right mind. And so we got a very strong brand color scheme going. We went really graphic. We wanted to keep a lot of contrast. We even inserted memes, that type of thing. And for them, it was kind of like, we wanted to create content that was their people in their office, but also welcoming new people to join the team. And so the actual music track on this video is kind of like a hip hop track, which is kind of controversial because a lot of people don't like hip hop. And when you think of professional industries, you don't really necessarily think of hip hop unless you're thinking of like a really motivated sales team kind of thing. But this was like a whole business. They were kind of that energy in Toronto, and it worked for them, and it really got them discovered and, like I said, acquired through social media. Now, these are some examples that I took off the internet, so I don't take credit for any of this, but it's basically examples of 3 brands who have taken to Twitter and have done a quite controversial marketing strategy, considering it's calling out people. Like, for instance, the Chipotle, it's getting hot out there, so don't forget to stay hydrated. That's what our water cups are for, water. So that's basically calling everyone out on Chipotle who say, oh, can I get a cup? Because there's the juice bins at the back and people fill it up with the juice even though they're supposed to pay for it. So that's kind of funny. And then again, good morning to everyone except people who take our Tabasco bottles. So that's another call out, kind of funny. That's controversial content. And if you have kind of like some common things that happen with your customers or some funny scenarios that have happened, you might want to put them out there because they're really relatable. Here we had 2 brands, Burger King and Budweiser, contacting each other and kind of doing really Gen Z kind of behavior, like ring to the other brand, hello, what's up, you know, like that kind of meme that's funny with the scary movies. And it really translated and it worked really well. So that was kind of controversial because typically brands don't promote each other unless it's like a multi-million-dollar campaign and they've partnered together. But this is kind of a fun way to connect audiences that really worked. Now, there is a way, like I said, in terms of comparing content to each other. Here at Wendy's, I took this post from Danny Bull. So thanks, Danny Bull, here on LinkedIn. Definitely give him a follow. He has a lot of interesting content. He talks about how Wendy's was really good at, well, potentially good at using a brand's branding to promote their own brand. And so this is an example of controversial content. Sometimes this I think it might have given people the ick. You'd have to read the comments, but these are definitely examples here. Hunter and Gather did the same thing with mayonnaise and ketchup, creating healthier versions of it, saying real food, refined sugar-free, to contrast and compare the difference between the two products and to show you that this is the healthier choice and you should choose this one. So that worked, and I think that went down better than this, because this is really about your health versus this is about fast food and maybe just kind of a little too dramatic and kind of like a dance off, whereas this is like, it makes sense to compare them because it is the healthier option. So anyways, with all that being said, those are some campaigns that I wanted to show you guys. Among many different things that you could find online, those were some that stood out to me when I was doing research for the webinar, so I hope you enjoyed them. We've been on for half an hour now, so I'm just going to take the last 10-15 minutes to go over why you might want to how you might want to execute some of these campaigns using a filtering system, taking into consideration regulation for your industries, and just some general guidelines on how to effectively make these controversial campaigns go live and perform well. So my advice definitely is to understand your governing forces. You want to make sure that you know your industry and know exactly what you're allowed and not allowed to do online and with advertising. And so with that, I would say get familiar with digital marketing compliance. This topic was one that I covered in the last webinar. So if you want to go over there and learn more about kind of marketing in more regulated industries like law firms and health clinics, from clinics to courtrooms, it was called. Definitely go back and watch that. But we also have another upcoming one about compliance and digital marketing that you can join an RSVP to on our LinkedIn page. So for HIPAA compliance, that's marketers working in healthcare or with medical data must ensure the campaigns are HIPAA compliant to avoid fines and legal issues. This compliance reassures patients that their personal health data is secure, building trust in healthcare brands and ensuring sensitive information is never misused. So basically that means you're not going against your customers' privacy rights online. You want to make sure that you're protecting the patient, that their data is secure. The EU Digital Services Act might not be related to you if you don't advertise or sell to Europe, but that's for marketers targeting EU audiences that must adopt to DSA requirements, particularly regarding transparency around ad content and data usage. So by aligning with these standards, brands can enhance trust and credibility, ensuring compliance while promoting ethical practices in digital advertising. So that's mostly for ads. So if you're a Canadian company or an American company and you're running ads out to other continents, you want to make sure that you're compliant with those continents as well. Now, a lot of the platforms on like Meta advertising and LinkedIn advertising, they will flag this kind of content. They don't let you do like before and afters. I think it's really, they won't let you use other people's branding. So be careful if you're doing a direct comparison, that kind of thing. So it will always alert you if your ad hasn't been approved, but just in case, it's good to know all of this in the background so that you don't waste your time creating an ad that's just going to get declined. And so that if you're posting organic content, you're still compliant, because it's not the platform's responsibility to ensure it's yours. And so we're really familiar with this compliance, and we work hard to make sure everything's in alignment. And so if you want to kind of outsource that and get your content taken care of by somebody else who knows this, definitely talk to us and book a discovery call with Ellie Social Media. Now, the last two are the Consumer Ad Standards and the Canadian Food and Drugs Act. And those are obviously pretty self-explanatory. Supplement companies and pharmaceuticals are going to really want to stick to those standards and the Canadian Food Act in order to not get fines, because you can also get in trouble and develop legal issues for not abiding by regulation. So what are the do's and don'ts of controversial marketing? So this is really interesting. I'll just go over them verbally. The do's and don'ts. So the do is to meet with your team to discuss parameters, broad guidelines, do's and don'ts for your specific marketing strategy, and review regulations surrounding your industry. So that's the do. What you don't want to do is go AWOL and brew up a ton of controversial content solo, not share it with your team, and not consider backlash, post it naively and promptly without considering consequences. Obviously, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that with any campaign that you run, regardless of if it's controversial or not. You want to get input. You want to have discernment and think critically surrounding the content that you're creating. And so getting second opinions and ensuring that you're being out and open with what you're doing so that you don't surprise your leadership or your boss and mess things up online. Because they could know something to do with compliance that you don't, right? And if you're a social media manager, you always want to kind of work on the air of caution and work together collaboratively to ensure that no mistakes are made. Especially if you don't know, if you have a perspective that maybe isn't shared by everyone and you haven't necessarily debated about it or considered the other side of things, that could really get you in trouble. So another do is to consider all groups and individuals when strategizing and building creative briefs. Make sure you're inclusive, kind, and true to your values. If you think that you're being mean, you should probably not post it. There's a way to do things professionally. Even if you're doing a comparison video, stick to the facts. You don't want to just say opinions that aren't substantiated or that you can't fight for, and then just leave it in the ether of the internet and have it not resonate. So only consider your specific customer avatar. Don't test it to see if it's the reality. If you're only considering your specific customer avatar and you don't test to see if it's the actual reality of your customer base, then you'll find out that you made assumptions and it didn't exactly land with your audience. You want to also make sure you're not ignoring all the values that align with the brand, and you're not taking it into a personal direction and just taking it because you want to make a personal cause. It has to align with your business in order for it to land properly and to resonate with your audience, obviously. Another thing that you should do is have a contingency plan and PR help on hand should anything go amiss. Now, nobody's perfect. No campaign is perfect. Some things can be unexpected. Mistakes can be made. It's important you know what your plan B is and what your contingency plan is to repair whatever damage was done. A lot of these big multi-million-dollar campaigns and advertisements that go out with really successful businesses because they know they have the budget behind them to then correct anything that goes amiss, as long as they don't mess up too severely that they really alienate their entire audience. But usually they have help. So you may not have a budget to hire a PR agency, and you don't necessarily need to. Apologies go a long way. Make sure that you have truth in your convictions, and don't be afraid to say sorry and to fix whatever went awry. Don't just delete the post and pretend it never happened, especially if it was met with backlash and anger. You might want to hide the post, but you definitely want to respond to all of the comments. Definitely get a second opinion on this. You might find that keeping it up and staying true to your values and staying true to the cause ends up gaining more respect than just deleting it and pretending it never happened, right? Someone might not agree with you, but they might have respect that the fact that you stuck with your guns and stuck to your opinion and didn't kind of go awry from that. Let me know what some do's and don'ts are in the comment section if you can think of any. I know that would be a funny kind of comment section to look at afterwards, so definitely let me know. Next up, when you're building community, you want to ask yourself 5 questions. Is this content representative of my brand? What is the general vibe of this post and how do I want people to feel? Is this post sparking a real conversation? Does this post relate to my customers or give them the ick? Is this post helping strengthen brand loyalty in the long term? These are all the questions that you need to ask yourself when you want to build community with controversial content. I can repeat those if need be. Is this content representative of my brand? What is the general vibe of this post and how do I want people to feel? Is this post sparking a real conversation? Does this post relate to my customers or give them the ick? Is this post strengthening brand loyalty in the long term? So those are the 5 questions you need to ask yourself. And then when we think about the metrics that we want to track, we also want to consider the after effects of the campaign, right? You put the campaign up, it's done well or maybe not, but what are you looking at to actually measure the success of your most recent campaign? And I can help you with that. I have made this little slide here that talks about key metrics. Now I've labeled them each neutral, positive, or just kind of the reality of like what will show you the reality of your campaign. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. So when you think of follower growth, say you post a controversial campaign and you get a massive follower growth. That's obviously going to be positive, but say you got a bunch of unfollows. Obviously, at first glance, that seems like a really negative thing to have under your brand. Okay, we posted this, 20 people unfollowed us. What a disaster. Oh my goodness. But the truth is those 20 people weren't aligned with your brand. If you followed all of these tips and tricks before you get to this part, if all of those people unfollowed you, it could be a blessing. Unfollows are a blessing in disguise a lot of the time, because what you're doing is you're getting a stronger audience. You're taking all of those views and impressions, and now you know that it's 2 people that care about your brand. If someone is willing to unfollow you just like that, let bygones be bygones and move forward. They probably weren't going to buy from your brand anyways. And so with that being said, you need to think about the importance of buyers versus followers. If your followers are actually buyers or not. If they're not, it doesn't really matter, because they're not adding revenue to your business and it doesn't really equal more money. More followers does not equal more money. You can have a small scale community that's really loyal and repeat buyers and always purchasing from you and always going to visit your clinic or your firm, and that's your smaller base. Or you can have a bunch of followers because you had a lot of viral campaigns, but a lot of those don't actually purchase from you. So follower growth isn't necessarily a metric that's going to give you a clear idea of your revenue or of the impact of your business. Comments, on the other hand, will. So I wrote neutral here because it depends if they're positive or negative. If they're negative, then you know that you've made a mistake here, but also keep in mind the person commenting might not be a customer. Again, so That's why it makes it neutral. Another key metric that is kind of neutral is impressions without engagement. That means that, yeah, a lot of people saw your content, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they agreed with it or that they felt anything about it. It just means that they went on their feed. So if you're not eliciting an engagement or a reaction, the post was kind of a flop. And mass unfollows I obviously covered. So something positive would be obviously likes and shares. If someone is willing to like your content, that means something, especially on LinkedIn, because when people like content on LinkedIn, it gets shown on a feed and other people can see what you've liked. And so you're kind of associating yourself to that content if you've liked it. That's on LinkedIn. If you're liking it on Instagram, people can still see, but not in your professional network and not just based on their feed. So that's different. But if someone is willing to press like on your video, it means that you've done a good job. If someone is willing to share their content onto your feed, that means you've done an amazing job, because that is literally somebody taking your content, putting their name on it and putting it on their feed as if it's their own belief. Huge. Saves could be important. Depending on who's saving the content, but usually that's a good resonator and shows that it's resonated with somebody enough that it's something that they want to save for later or revisit and go back to. So that's a good indicator of engagement. Now, some of these on the right-hand side are a little bit harder to measure. So viewer sentiment, that is something that, like, for instance, you see with TV, and you get people to watch the episode before it goes live so that you can determine if people are going to enjoy the episode or if it resonated with people. It's blanking on me the word, but for long-standing TV shows like Friends, Gilmore Girls, their marketing team would then take that episode and show it to a certain number of people and then give them a kind of a questionnaire or find out how they felt about the episode after, so that they could decide, okay, who are the characters that we need to kill off? Who do they like seeing the most? What kind of situations do people enjoy watching? That's a good way to do viewer sentiment. You won't be able to do that if you don't have a bigger budget, but you could kind of ask a few of your customers what they thought of your marketing campaign and get kind of a small sample and do your own research. Now, the other thing that are going to show the reality of your campaign is your customer lifetime cycle, which you could obviously see in your backend analytics. Website clicks, conversions, and sales. Obviously, these are the big ones. These are the reality of what your campaign achieved. So if it reached your goals, you'll be able to measure them and indicate whether or not it was a successful thing. So the final filter that you want to put on your campaigns is this is what you ask yourself before you even post. So this one is kind of like when you're considering your strategy, and this is right before you post, okay? So final filters is, what is the general vibe of this post and how do I want people to feel? Is it sparking a real conversation? We covered that. Is this post intentional and related to achieving our KPIs? Is this post aligned with our values? Is this post derogative or at the expense of other groups? Don't post it. What are the ripple effects of this post? What's going to happen after I press post and it goes live? Who could it affect? What's going to be the outcome? Can I project and manage the consequences of this post? Are there any subliminal messages in the creatives? Maybe I'm missing something. Is there anything I'm missing here? Okay. How can this post potentially be perceived in a negative way? What's the worst case scenario of this post? That's what you want to ask yourself. And then after you've posted it, you might need to manage some backlash. So here's some ways to handle negative reactions and turn critics into advocates. Apologies. Accepting responsibility, it can go a long way. Apologies go a long way. If you've seen online, some celebrities have made wrong decisions in the past, they give out a PR statement that says, I apologize for this, this, and this. I did not mean to do this. it's easy. If you want a template, you can probably find it online and configure your own response. Take your ego out of it and just own up to it and apologize to whatever hurt you caused. If it's on the other end of it and you notice that the comments are kind of, you don't agree with the comments, or you want to stick to your guns and have confidence in your convictions, maybe your apology is, we apologize to those who we have hurt. Our business is still in line with these values, that sort of thing. Or you could just go off completely and say, no, we don't agree with that. That's not right. We're not that kind of business. And you stay with it. You remain authentic and steadfast. And then you can build some respect from that later down the road, or your loyal customers will see that you are strong in your convictions. So that's going to take some discernment. You need to be able to understand different points of view and understand where you stand there. Next off, you could continue to move forward and share your knowledge. Don't just post about this once. Make sure you have some follow-up posts. If it was something that turned out well, create more content around it. But in general, share your knowledge, share your perspective, share where you're coming from with the post, and hopefully that will help people understand and learn more. Now, you get to decide after these campaigns if you want to repeat or change the behavior, and that's up to you and your team. That's up to your brand manager, honestly, and your boss to determine if this was something that you want to keep doing, or maybe just do once a quarter, whatever it is. But decide if it's something you want to repeat or change, how you want to change it for the next time. And like I said, going even deeper. So sticking to your perspective, sticking to your guns, and going deeper. Now maybe you've shared your perspective and maybe it was met with some backlash, but now you can actually commit to a specific cause and make a donation towards that cause or that nonprofit or that charity, and stick with the message that you had originally posted. Put some money behind it. Make sure you know you're showing your customers that this is what we believe in, and that will be a good way to manage some of the backlash. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to just get started with your first 20 posts on your social media and you have kind of just sparse posts here and there and you want to get serious, go ahead onto my website, download our free social media guide for the first 20 posts, and that will take your business from invisible to flourishing, and then you can start experimenting with controversial content. And the last thing that you can do is, if you are interested in working with Ellie Social Media, you can request a free proposal. This basically includes trending content inspo, a brief social media account audit, competitors' insight, and our recommendations for next steps. So that would be something that could be really helpful for you if you are just getting started and want some insights from a person who's been working in social media for over 6 years now. We do those audits completely free. We just ask that you book a discovery call with us afterwards so that we can go over the research and go over the proposal with you in person over Zoom. So that's basically it for today. Let me know in the comment section how you enjoyed this live stream. I really enjoyed spending this time with you. I want to wish you guys a very happy holidays. I'm going to be going live again in December, so definitely check that out. That's for people who are just getting started from scratch on social media, and I'll be guiding them into how to turn around a presence and how to get started building a strategy out for social media. So that's going to be the next webinar in December. Like I said, we have 4 or 3 already planned for the new year, so definitely check those out, RSVP to the ones that are interesting to you, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you had some value in here, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye now.